I believe the solution to immigration, of course, that'll be one of our judiciary matters too. I don't sit on the immigration subcommittee, however. But it is my firm belief that it's going to have to be done in a two-pronged approach. A, secure the border. That's going to have to be done first. And I believe, and this is controversial, what I'm about to say, Richard, I believe there must be some sort of accommodation for guest workers. Guest workers, seasonal workers, needed workers, call them what you will. But I have talked to people in my district, the district I represent, tobacco farmers, farmers generally, pork producers, poultry producers, landscapers, restaurateurs. They tell me that if the arsenal from which they draw these guest workers, if that arsenal was foreclosed and no longer available to them, they tell me that it would be catastrophic. Mm-hmm. And they furthermore, Richard, tell me that most of these workers are dependable, and many of these workers, according to them, they tell me that they're not taking jobs from Americans because they can't find local people to do the jobs. So those are issues that will be forthcoming and are going to have to be addressed. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say, Richard, it's going to take second stage behind the presidential election, I didn't mean to conclude that nothing's going to be accomplished between now and November of 2008. Mm-hmm. But I think you and I and your viewers know that the presidential election will be first and foremost.
Well, you know, you hit on two issues there, war and immigration. And I want to pinpoint, let's go back to the war a second. Be real blunt, because a lot of people want blunt answers, and I would feel like I'm not doing a service to a lot of folks out there and asking you, do we belong in that war over there right now?
Well, we're there.
Okay.
And that's the problem.
Do we need to leave the war? Do we need to give up and leave?
I don't think we want to give up. Mm-hmm. But I may have been the first Republican who voted for it. There were very few Republicans voted against it. But if I had known, Richard, that the post-entry strategy was as ill prepared as it was, I probably would have voted against it. Mm-hmm. I assumed, and I don't think it was unreasonable for those in the Congress to assume, that some sort of post-entry strategy has been detailed and thoroughly laid out. Mm-hmm. But we're there. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can afford to give up. I think one of the salient omissions, in addition to our having not done a good job on post-entry strategy, has been the failure of the Iraqi government. I think we need to be more firm with them and say, now listen, guys, you all wanted Saddam removed, we removed him. Now it's time for you all to roll up your respective sleeves and get with it. Mm-hmm. And I think I'd rather approach it that way, Richard, rather than just abruptly leave tomorrow.
Absolutely.
I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can in good conscience do that. But I think we can certainly start talking about it and let withdrawal be on the table.
Yeah. Well, Congressman Coble, let's say the early intentions of fighting this war were incorrect as far as the plan. But we now have realized that and went to General Petraeus and asked him for he's asked for an influx after he did his review, and it appears from reports that we're hearing that it's working. Do you think right now the influx of extra military personnel, is it working in that war?
I'll use the same word you did, Richard. It appears so. Mm-hmm. I'm very high on Petraeus. Don't know him personally. Met him a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I was not confident that the surge would work, but I believe it is. Mm-hmm. But keep in mind, it is as far as violence having subsided, is not working as far as the political part of the equation, mm-hmm. because that was part of the surge to accelerate Iraqi political resolution, mm-hmm. and they're behind the curve on that. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe we haven't been firm enough in putting our foot down and saying, listen, guys, let's get moving. Now, as far as weapons of mass destruction, Richard, I'll go to my grave believing that Saddam had them. Mm-hmm. Where they are, I don't know, because they hadn't been detected. but I'm confident that he had them or the wherewithal to produce them.
Well, was our intelligence not up to par?
I don't know.
You don't know?
So see, I don't sit on the Intelligence Committee, and much of that would be exclusively reserved for them.
I understand.
But it seems to me, common sense tells me that either the intelligence was flawed or else we ignored. If the intelligence was not flawed, some of our people in responsible positions didn't respond as they should have.
Well, that definitely gives me an insight from your perspective. Now, let's go back to immigration for a second. And this is a question that is asked a lot here in local media, as far as talk media here on radio and here on public access TV, is why can we just not ask anyone here in this country, if you're illegally here, to just leave? Would that be so wrong to ask someone that?
Well, it would not be wrong, but there are probably in excess of 12 million who are here illegally, Richard. And I think logistically, it's probably not feasible to say that we can, okay, you 12 million hit the road. Your question is a fair. Your statement's a fair one. I don't know how well it would be implemented.
Yeah. Well, you know, I asked this because my own wife came here from Italy. She had to go through the process of getting to be a natural citizen here in, as far as her citizen's paper here for the United States. And it was a long process.
And she stood in line.
Stood in line. Again, a good example of that would be Congressman Coble. If we're at the grocery store and 10 people gets in front of us, jumps in front. A lot of people feel abused in that system. Then we have folks that are outside this country that are wanting to come here, that are playing by the rules. But, you know, what benefit to them if they cannot, why don't they just come on in too, like everyone else? And that's a question that we hear a lot of.
And I'm glad you brought that out too, Richard. I want to make clear to your viewers that I am not endorsing amnesty. I didn't mean to even imply that. And many of these guest workers, they'll come here, they'll go back to their home country, then come back for the next season. But I don't think amnesty is the answer. Now, some folks have proposed amnesty. If we do amnesty, we're slapping in the face the people who are in line and who have complied with the rules as they should have.
Well, would amnesty be any type of workers program that you mentioned earlier? Could that lead to that? Because a lot of people think that workers program is just a cloud for amnesty.
I don't believe that. I don't think so. That may be subject to interpretation, but I don't believe that would qualify as amnesty.
I understand. Well, you know, in my opinion, whenever the fall election comes up for a president, that I think the number one issue, I think it will not be the war. I think it's going to be immigration, and maybe the war second. You know,
and another feature too, Richard, the economy.
The economy. That's absolutely, because as you know, our American dollar is very weak right now.
I know.
You know, and if you could summarize it, what do you think is the number one problem facing the Americans today? We have about 3 minutes left. Could you give me about a 2-minute answer on that?
Well, I think one of our problems is our failure to refine, to drill and refine for oil. We could do it in Anwar. We could do it offshore more than we've done. And I think we could do it in Anwar and offshore without damaging the environment. I'm convinced of that. Now, the good news is, Richard, much of our petroleum is imported from friends, i.e. Canada to the north, Mexico to the south. That's the good news, because they're friendly nations. But we also get a lot of our petroleum from countries occupied by people who hate us. And that's a very fragile arrangement. When you're getting oil, a very, very necessary commodity, from people who don't like us, that causes me to sleep with one eye open at night. And that, I think we need to emphasize the importance of refining domestically in a safe way as far as the environment's exposure is concerned.
Well, as everyone knows, it's been years since we've had a refinery built here in the United States, and you know, and so forth. But anyway, if you just tuned in, I'm here with Congressman Coble from the 6th District, and we're actually wrapping up. Congressman, thank you for coming up in the western part of North Carolina.
And the land of the sky.
Land of the sky. We want to be certain that you come back, and you're always welcome to come on Public Access TV and share your views and let the folks be introduced to gentleman that served several years in Congress.